Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive ship floating in space before them. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen. The alien vessel stretched for miles, its dark metal surface covered in strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. His own ship, the USS Endeavour, looked like a toy next to it. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the communications console. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. This was the moment they had all been waiting for? First contact with alien life. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main display flickered, then showed the bridge of the alien ship. The being that appeared was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, like pools of oil. When it spoke, the words came through their translation system. "I am Ambassador Kethfer of the Zephyrian Collective. You are the species called humans, correct?" Jake stood up from his captain's chair. "Yes, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Endeavour. We come in peace." The alien's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, but it didn't look friendly. "Peace? How amusing. You speak of peace when you do not yet understand your position." Back on Earth, President Nicole Harper sat in the emergency meeting room deep under the White House. The room was full of people, generals, scientists, and diplomats. All eyes were on the large screen showing the alien ship. "Dr. Brooks, what can you tell us about their technology?" The president asked. Dr. Kevin Brooks, Earth's top physicist, shook his head in wonder. "It's incredible, Madam President. Their ship is generating energy readings we can barely measure. Their weapons could turn our entire fleet into dust." Admiral Lisa Rodriguez leaned forward. "Then we need to be very careful about what we say." On the Endeavour's bridge, Ambassador Kethfer continued speaking. "Your species has recently achieved faster-than-light travel. This means you have reached what we call the threshold of awareness. You must now choose your path." "What kind of choice?" Jake asked. "You may join the Galactic Empire as a member species, or you may be eliminated. These are the only options available to primitive races like yours." Lieutenant Foster's eyes widened. She looked at Jake, then back at the screen. "Did he just call us primitive?" Kethfer seemed to hear her. "Yes, young human. You are primitive. Your technology is crude. Your society is chaotic. Your military is weak. But the Empire is generous. We offer you a place in our great civilization." "What would that involve?" Jake asked, though he was beginning to suspect he wouldn't like the answer. "First, you will surrender all your weapons and military vessels. Second, you will provide tribute to the Empire in the form of resources and labor. Third, you will accept imperial law and governance. Fourth, your people will be assigned to the appropriate caste level within our society." In the White House Situation Room, President Harper's eyebrows rose. "Caste level?" Dr. Brooks was frantically taking notes. "From what he's saying, it sounds like they have a rigid social system. Everyone has a fixed place in society, and where would humans fit in this system?" General Patricia Wells asked. On the screen, Kethfer was answering that very question. "Humans will be classified as a Class 7 species. You will serve in labor positions and basic technical roles. Your more intelligent individuals may be selected for Class 6 status after proper education and conditioning." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "And if we refuse?" "Then your species will be eliminated. Your world will be cleansed and prepared for colonization by more suitable races. We have done this many times before. It is a standard procedure," the alien said, this as if he were discussing the weather. There was no emotion in his voice, no hint that he was talking about killing billions of people. Amy Foster made a small sound that might have been a laugh. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. "Something amuses you, human?" Kethfer asked. "No, sir, I'm sorry, it's just ... Amy looked at her captain, who nodded for her to continue. "It's just that you're talking about enslaving our entire species like it's some kind of business deal." "It is a business deal," Kethfer replied. "The Empire requires resources and labor. You provide both. In return, we allow your species to continue existing. This is more generous than you deserve. President Harper watched the exchange with growing amazement. Are they serious? They actually think we're going to agree to this? They've probably done this thousands of times, Dr. Brooks said. Most species they encounter are probably terrified. Into submission? Admiral Rodriguez smiled grimly. They don't know humans very well, do they? Back on the Endeavor, Jake was fighting to keep his voice level. Ambassador Kethver, I need to discuss this with my government. How much time do we have to decide? You have 3 of your days. After that, if you have not agreed to Imperial terms, our battle fleet will arrive to begin the cleansing process. 3 days, Jake repeated. Yes, use this time wisely. Study your histories. See what happened to species that chose unwisely. The Empire's patience is not unlimited. The screen went dark. The alien ship began to move away from the Endeavor, heading toward the edge of the solar system. Jake turned to his crew. Well, that was interesting, Amy Foster was grinning now. Captain, did you hear what he said? They want us to surrender our weapons and become their slaves. I heard it, Jake said. I'm just not sure I believe it. They seemed pretty serious to me, said Lieutenant Commander Helen Price from the navigation station. Oh, they're serious, Amy said. That's what makes it so funny, Jake raised an eyebrow. Funny? Sir, think about it. They just threatened to wipe out the entire human race if we don't agree to become their servants. And they said it like they were offering us a job. Dr. Brooks' voice came over the communication system from Earth. Captain Morrison, we're analyzing the data from their ship. Their technology is advanced, but not impossibly so. We're seeing things we can understand, even if we can't build them yet. What are you saying, Doctor? Jake asked. I'm saying they're not gods, they're just people with better tools. In the White House, President Harper was meeting with her advisors. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional whisper of conversation. Madam President, General Wells said, we need to consider our options carefully. If their technology is as advanced as it appears, we might not have a choice. There's always a choice, the President replied. The question is whether we're willing to accept the consequences. Dr. Brooks looked up from his tablet. I've been thinking about what Ambassador Kethver said, about how they've done this thousands of times before. And if they've conquered thousands of species, they must have a pattern, a way of doing things that works for them. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. They come in with overwhelming force, make their demands, and most species surrender rather than fight. Exactly, Dr. Brooks said. But what if they encounter a species that doesn't follow the pattern? What if they meet someone who laughs at their threats instead of cowering? President. Harper was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. You know what? I think Ambassador Kethver is about to learn something about humans that isn't in his files. What's that? General Wells asked. We don't scare easily, and we really don't like bullies. 3 days later, Ambassador Kethver's ship returned to Earth's solar system. This time, it was accompanied by a small fleet of warships. The alien appeared on screen again, his expression confident. Have you reached a decision? He asked. President Harper appeared on the communication channel. Yes, Ambassador, we have. And? The answer is no. We decline your generous offer. Kethver's forearms moved in what might have been surprise. You refuse, even knowing the consequences? We refuse, the President said simply. We prefer to remain free. Then you have chosen extinction. Our fleet will begin the cleansing process immediately. President Harper smiled. You're welcome to try. The alien stared at her for a moment, then cut the communication. His ships began to move toward Earth, weapons charging, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the USS Endeavor and her sister ships were waiting. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Kethver's ultimatum, and the Galactic Empire was not pleased. Fleet Admiral Zixthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue planet through the viewscreen. Behind him stretched the largest battle fleet the Empire had assembled in centuries, over 200 warships, each one capable of destroying entire cities. Admiral, his communications officer reported, We are receiving a message from the human world. Put it through, Zixthal ordered. He expected to hear pleas for mercy, desperate offers of surrender. Instead, a human woman appeared on the screen. She was sitting calmly at a desk as if she were discussing the weather. "I am President Nicole Harper of Earth," she said. "I understand you wish to speak with us." Zixthal's three eyes narrowed. "I am Fleet Admiral Zixthal of the Imperial Navy. I have come to complete the cleansing of your world. You were given a choice and chose poorly." "Actually, we chose quite well," President Harper replied. "We've been very busy these past 3 weeks." "Busy?" The Admiral's voice carried a hint of amusement. "What could primitives like you possibly accomplish in 3 weeks? Why don't you scan our system and find out?" Zixthal gestured to his sensor officer. "Report." The officer, a young Zephyrian named Velther, stared at his instruments in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading. This can't be right." "What?" "The humans appear to have constructed orbital defense platforms around their world, hundreds of them." "Impossible. Our intelligence reports showed no such capability." "Sir, I'm also detecting energy signatures from their ships. They're using our own technology?" Zixthal moved to the sensor station and looked at the readings himself. What he saw made no sense. The human ships were indeed using Zephyrian technology, but they had modified it in ways that seemed to violate basic physics on Earth. General Patricia Wells stood in the command center that had been built beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with displays showing the positions of every ship in the system. Human vessels moved between the orbital platforms like fish in a reef. "General," reported Colonel Steve Patterson, "our fighters are in position. The Dawn's Edge squadron is ready for launch." "Good, and Dr. Brooks?" Dr. Kevin Brooks looked up from his computer terminal. "The modifications are complete. We've managed to improve their shield technology by about 30%. How is that possible?" asked Engineer Tony Martinez. "We've only had their technology for 3 weeks. "That's the beautiful thing about being human," Dr. Brooks smiled. "We don't know what's supposed to be impossible." Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zixthal was growing frustrated. "Communications. Contact the human leader again." President Harper appeared on screen, still looking remarkably calm. "Yes, Admiral, you have orbital weapons. We are impressed. But you cannot possibly believe they will be effective against our fleet." "Actually, we're not planning to use the orbital weapons against your fleet," Harper said. "Then what are they for?" "They're for protecting our planet while we deal with your fleet personally." Zixthal blinked all 3 eyes. "Deal with us?" "You have perhaps 50 ships. We have over 200. "Yes, but quantity isn't everything, is it?" Before the Admiral could respond, his tactical officer shouted a warning. "Sir, multiple contacts approaching from the asteroid belt." "What? How many?" 12 ... No, 15 human vessels. "They're moving very fast. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected them." "Sir, I think they were hiding inside the asteroids." "But that's not the strange part." "What's the strange part?" "They're not following normal flight patterns. They're appearing and disappearing." Colonel Patterson piloted the lead fighter, Dawn's Edge, through a maneuver that would have been impossible in any normal ship. Then the modifications Dr. Brooks had made to the alien technology allowed the human vessels to phase shift through dimensions, making them appear to teleport. "Dawn leader to all fighters," Patterson spoke into his radio. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to embarrass them." "Copy that, Dawn leader," came the reply from Lieutenant Maria Santos in Dawn 2. "Beginning attack run." The human fighters swooped down on the Imperial fleet like angry wasps. Their weapons, modified versions of Zephyrian technology, cut through the alien shields as if they weren't there. But instead of destroying the ships, the humans targeted their weapon systems and engines. Admiral Zixthal watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically disabled by a handful of tiny human craft. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Sir," Velther reported, "they're using our own weapons against us, but they've modified them somehow. They're more powerful than they should be." "More powerful? How much more powerful?" Approximately 3 times more powerful than our weapons, sir. One of the human fighters appeared directly in front of the Eternal Dominion's bridge. Through the cockpit, Zixthel could see the pilot. The human was young, probably female, and she was smiling at him. She gave him a small wave, then disappeared again. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving a message from the human fleet. Put it through. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on screen. He was standing on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, which looked very different from 3 weeks ago. The ship was larger, sleeker, and clearly more advanced. Admiral Zixthel, Jake said, I'm Captain Morrison. I believe we met before. Impossible. Your ship was primitive. This vessel is the USS Endeavour, upgraded with technology we borrowed from Ambassador Kethfer's ship. I hope you don't mind. You stole our technology? We prefer to think of it as aggressive research and development. We've made some improvements. Behind Admiral Zixthel, another officer reported more bad news. Sir, 40% of our fleet has been disabled. The humans are not destroying our ships, but they're making them completely helpless. Why aren't they destroying us? Zixthel asked. Captain Morrison heard the question. Because we're not monsters, Admiral. We don't kill unless we have to. We're just making a point. What point? That you picked the wrong species to threaten. At that moment, the lights on the Imperial flagship flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the bridge in a red glow. Sir, the engineer reported, they've disabled our main power systems. We're running on backup power only. How? I don't know, sir. Their weapons seem to be designed specifically to disable our technology without destroying it. Captain Morrison's voice came through the speakers. Admiral, we're going to have a little chat now. Would you like to come aboard our ship, or would you prefer we come to yours? Zixthel looked around his darkened bridge. Half his fleet was drifting helplessly in space, disabled by an enemy that had appeared from nowhere and attacked with impossible technology. The other half was being systematically taken apart by fighters that could apparently teleport. I will come to your ship, he said finally. An hour later, Admiral Zixthel found himself sitting in the conference room of the USS Endeavour. The room was comfortable, with soft chairs and a table that held what the humans called coffee. Captain Morrison sat across from him along with several other humans. Admiral, Morrison said, let me introduce you to some people. This is Dr. Kevin Brooks, our chief scientist. This is General Patricia Wells, our military commander. And this is Amy Foster, my tactical officer. Zixthel nodded to each of them. How did you do it? He asked. How did you defeat our fleet so quickly? Dr. Brooks smiled. We didn't defeat you, Admiral. We just showed you that your technology isn't as advanced as you thought it was. That's impossible. Our technology has been perfected over thousands of years. That's exactly the problem, Amy Foster said. You stopped innovating. You found something that worked and you stuck with it. But it has worked. We have conquered thousands of worlds. Yes, but you conquered worlds that were afraid of you, General Wells said. You conquered worlds that believed you were superior. We never believed that. You should have been afraid, Zixthel said. Our fleet could have destroyed your world. Could it? Dr. Brooks asked. Because from what we've seen, your weapons are actually quite limited. They're powerful, but they're not very smart. What do you mean? Your weapons are designed to do one thing, destroy. Our weapons are designed to do many things. We can destroy, disable, disrupt, or even repair with the same basic technology. Captain Morrison leaned forward. Admiral, when your ambassador Kethfer came to us 3 weeks ago, he made a mistake. He assumed we would react like every other species you've encountered. He assumed we would be afraid. You should have been afraid. But we weren't, Morrison said. We were curious. And when humans get curious, amazing things happen. Amy Foster stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the disabled Imperial fleet drifted in space while human rescue ships moved between them, offering assistance to the alien crews. Admiral, she said, your empire has been in charge for a long time, maybe too long. Maybe it's time for some new ideas. What are you suggesting? We're suggesting that there might be a better way to run a galactic civilization, Dr. Brooks said. A way that doesn't involve conquest and slavery. Zixthel was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What would you do with our fleet?" "We're going to repair it," Morrison said. "And then we're going to send you home. To report our failure?" Dr. Kevin Brooks walked through the research facility that had been built in the mountains of Colorado. The place was buzzing with activity. Human scientists worked alongside captured Zephyrian officers who had volunteered to help after seeing what humanity could do with their technology. "Dr. Brooks," called engineer Rebecca Lane from across the lab, "you need to see this." Brooks hurried over to where Rebecca was working with a Zephyrian named Velther. The alien had been one of Admiral Zixthel's officers, but after the battle he had asked to stay and learn about human methods. "What have you found?" Brooks asked. "Show him," Rebecca said to Velther. The alien touched a control panel, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. "The red systems are core Empire worlds," Velther explained. "The yellow ones are recently conquered. The blue ones are worlds that have tried to rebel but failed." Brooks studied the map. "How many blue systems are there?" "Over 3,000, Velther said quietly. "Many species have tried to fight the Empire. All have failed." "Until now," Rebecca added. "Yes," Velther agreed. "Until now." "But Dr. Brooks, there is something you should know. These worlds are not weak. Many of them have technology almost as advanced as ours. They failed because they fought the Empire the way the Empire expected them to fight." "What do you mean?" "They used large fleets, tried to match our firepower, followed the normal rules of space warfare. The Empire has been fighting that kind of war for thousands of years," Brooks nodded slowly. "But we didn't fight that kind of war." "No, you did things that made no sense to us. Your ships appeared where they shouldn't be. Your weapons worked in ways that violated our understanding of physics. Your tactics were chaotic," Rebecca laughed. "We prefer to call it creative." Meanwhile, at the Earth Defense Command Center, Lieutenant Commander Helen Price was studying reports from across the galaxy. The communications equipment that had been taken from the Imperial fleet was now being used to intercept Empire messages. "General Wells," she called to her commanding officer, "you need to hear this." General Patricia Wells walked over to Helen's station. "What is it?" "I've been monitoring Imperial communications. Word about what happened here has spread throughout the Empire. And the reaction is interesting. How so?" "3 systems have declared independence in the past week. The Empire is calling it a coincidence, but the timing suggests otherwise." General Wells smiled. "They're inspired by what we did?" "It gets better," Helen continued. "The Empire has sent fleets to put down these rebellions, but they're having trouble. The rebel worlds are using tactics similar to ours. They're learning from our example." "Yes, ma'am." "And there's more. We're receiving secret messages from resistance groups on dozens of worlds. They want to know how we defeated the Empire." At that moment, Captain Jake Morrison entered the command center. "General, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that might start a galactic war. We've just received a message from a ship called the Freedom's Dawn. They claim to be refugees from a world called Nexus Prime." "Never heard of it." "It's one of the Empire's core worlds. According to their message, they've stolen several Imperial ships and are requesting permission to enter our solar system." General Wells frowned. "That could be a trap." "It could be," Morrison agreed. "But if it's real, it means the rebellion is spreading faster than we expected." 3 hours later, the Freedom's Dawn arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ship was clearly of Imperial design, but it had been modified with weapons and equipment that the humans didn't recognize. "Captain." Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour as the alien ship approached. "Open communications," he ordered. The screen showed a being that looked similar to the Zephyrians, but with darker skin and 6 arms instead of 4. "I am Captain Felves of the Freedom's Dawn," the being said. "We request permission to approach your world." What's your business here, Captain? Morrison asked. We come seeking alliance. Our world has heard of your victory over the Empire. We wish to learn your methods. You're rebels? We are free beings who refuse to bow to imperial tyranny. My people have been slaves for 200 years. When we heard that someone had defeated an imperial fleet without destroying it, we knew we had to meet you. Morrison looked at his crew. Amy Foster nodded slightly. Permission granted, Captain. Welcome to Earth. The next day, Captain Thelvas and his crew were given a tour of the human research facilities. The alien captain was amazed by what he saw. You've taken Imperial technology and made it better, he said to Dr. Brooks. How is this possible? We didn't think it was impossible, Brooks replied. That's the difference. I don't understand. Engineer Carlos Mendez stepped forward. Captain, how long has your species been part of the Empire? 200 years. And in that time, has your technology advanced? Thelvas thought about it. No, the Empire provides us with what we need. We are not encouraged to innovate. That's the problem, Rebecca Lane said. The Empire wants everyone to use the same technology, follow the same rules, think the same way. But humans don't work like that. We can't help ourselves, Brooks added with a smile. We see something, and we immediately start thinking about how to make it better. Or how to break it, Carlos added, causing the humans to laugh. Thelvas didn't understand the joke, but he was beginning to understand something else. You're saying the Empire is weak because it doesn't change? We're saying the Empire is weak because it doesn't let anyone else change either, Amy Foster said, joining the group. Think about it. You have thousands of different species each, with their own ways of thinking, their own ideas. But the Empire forces everyone to think the same way. That's a terrible waste, Thelvas said slowly. Now you're getting it, Brooks said. Over the following weeks, more ships arrived from across the galaxy. Some were rebels like Captain Thelvas. Others were refugees from worlds that had been conquered recently. A few were even former Imperial officers who had decided they could no longer serve the Empire. Each group brought new ideas and new technologies. The humans shared their innovations freely, and in return, they learned about different ways of thinking about science and engineering. Engineer Maria Santos was working with a group of refugees from a world called Kepler 7. These beings looked like large insects, but they had an amazing understanding of energy systems. Your power systems are very inefficient, one of them, named Click Whistle, told her through the translation device. Can you show us how to improve them? Maria asked. Of course. But first, you must understand how we think about energy. 4. The next several hours, Click Whistle and her people explained their approach to power generation. It was completely different from both human and Zephyrian methods, but it was incredibly effective. This is amazing, Maria said. With this technology, we could power entire cities with a fraction of the fuel we use now. And if we combine it with our dimensional phase technology, added engineer Tony Martinez, we could create ships that barely need any fuel at all. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Helen Price was coordinating with resistance groups across the galaxy. The communications network that had started with a few secret messages had grown into a vast underground system. We're getting reports from over 50 systems now, she told General Wells. The Empire is having trouble keeping up with all the rebellions. What's their response? They're sending more fleets, but they're having the same problems they had here. The rebels are using our tactics, and the Empire doesn't know how to counter them. Are we coordinating these rebellions? Not directly. We're sharing information and techniques, but each world is fighting their own fight. General Wells nodded. That's probably for the best. If the Empire thought we were directly commanding these rebellions, they might decide to destroy Earth after all. At that moment, Captain Morrison entered the command center. General, we have a situation. We've just detected a massive Imperial fleet heading toward the Rigel system. How massive? Over 500 ships. It's 3 times larger than the fleet they sent here. Why Rigel? Because Rigel was the first system to declare independence after our victory. The Empire is making an example of them. General Wells was quiet for a moment. How long until the Imperial fleet reaches Rigel? 4 days. And how long would it take us to get there? With our new propulsion systems, about 6 days, so we can't help them directly. No, but we can do something else, Morrison said. We can give them the tools to help themselves. Helen looked up from her communications station. I'm already in contact with the Rigel resistance. They're asking for technical specifications for our weapons and shield modifications. Send them everything, General Wells ordered. And send it to every other rebel world, too. It's time to share what we've learned. Over the next few days, the human research teams worked around the clock to package their technological innovations into formats that other species could understand and use. The information was transmitted across the galaxy through the Resistance Network. Dr. Brooks stood in the main lab, watching as his teams prepared the final data packages. You know, he said to Rebecca Lane, 6 months ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we're part of a galactic rebellion. 6 months had passed since the first meeting between humanity and the Galactic Empire. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood in the command center that now coordinated what people were calling the Human Defense Alliance. The room was filled with beings from 12 different worlds, all working together in ways that would have been impossible under Imperial rule. Admiral, reported Captain Lisa Chung from her position at the tactical display, we're receiving updates from the Rigel system. The Imperial fleet has arrived. How many ships? 537 Imperial vessels. But the Rigel Defense Force has grown too. They now have over 200 ships, all equipped with our technology modifications. Rodriguez nodded. The humans had been busy in the past months, not just sharing their innovations but helping other species adapt them to their own ships and weapons. Each world brought their own ideas to improve the designs. What's the status of Operation Starfall? Rodriguez asked. All teams are in position, reported Commander Frank Turner, who had become the Alliance's chief coordinator. We have strike forces positioned in 17 different systems. The plan was something the Empire had never faced before. Instead of meeting their massive fleets in direct battle, the Alliance would attack Imperial supply lines, communication stations, and isolated outposts all at the same time. It was the kind of coordinated guerrilla warfare that the rigid Imperial command structure couldn't handle. Ma'am, called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communications station, we're getting a message from Captain Thelvas. The alien captain appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Rodriguez could see the bridge of his ship, which had been completely rebuilt using human and alien technology working together. Admiral Rodriguez, Thelvas said, my fleet is ready to begin the attack on the Proxima Supply Depot. How many ships do you have? 43 vessels from 6 different worlds? The Empire will not expect this kind of cooperation. Rodriguez smiled. That's exactly what we're counting on. Good hunting, Captain. Meanwhile, in the Rigel system, the battle was already beginning. The Imperial fleet had arranged itself in the traditional formation, large battleships in the center, smaller ships protecting the flanks. It was a formation that had worked for thousands of years against conventional enemies, but the Rigel defenders weren't conventional. Captain Zara Watson piloted her fighter, the Free Spirit, through a maneuver that made her ship seem to vanish and reappear behind the Imperial line. Her ship was a hybrid design, combining human phase shift technology with Rigel engineering and power systems from the insect-like beings of Kepler-7. All fighters, this is Free Leader, she spoke into her communicator. Remember the plan? We're not trying to destroy their big ships. We're trying to confuse them. The Rigel fighters, only 50 in number, began their attack. But instead of charging straight at the Imperial fleet, they used the dimensional phase technology to appear everywhere at once. One moment they would be attacking the left flank, the next they would be behind the main fleet, then suddenly they would be gone entirely. Admiral Corthovel, commanding the Imperial fleet, watched the battle with growing frustration. Where are they? He demanded. Sir, our sensors show them here. His tactical officer pointed to one part of the display. No, they're over here now, another officer interrupted, pointing to a different location. How many fighters are we facing? I'm not sure, sir. Our computers say 50, but they're moving in ways that don't make sense. The truth was that the 50 Rigel fighters were using a tactic developed by Maria Santos back on Earth. By coordinating their phase shifts, they could make it appear as if there were hundreds of them. The Imperial computers, designed to track normal ships, couldn't handle opponents that could seemingly be in multiple places at once. While the main Imperial fleet was distracted by the fighters, the real attack began. 200 Rigel defense ships, equipped with improved weapons and shields, emerged from hiding spots throughout the system. They had been waiting inside asteroid fields, behind moons, and even inside the planet's atmosphere. "Sir," the Imperial tactical officer shouted, "multiple contacts, they're everywhere. How is that possible?" "Our scouts surveyed this system. They must have been hiding, sir." "But their ships? They're reading much more powerful than they should." B. Admiral Korthovel was about to learn what every Imperial commander was discovering across the galaxy. The weapons and technology that the Empire had developed over thousands of years were no longer superior. The Alliance ships, using hybrid technology from multiple species, were faster, stronger, and more flexible than anything the Empire had. Back in the Human Defense Alliance Command Center, Admiral Rodriguez was coordinating attacks across 17 systems simultaneously. It was a level of multi-system warfare that had never been attempted before. "Proxima System reports successful strike on the supply depot," Frank Turner announced. "Captain Thelves destroyed 3 fuel stations and captured 2 cargo ships without losing a single vessel." "Vega System reports communications hub offline," added Lisa Chun. "The Empire has lost contact with 4 sector commands." "Centauri System reports Imperial patrol fleet disabled," called another officer. 15 ships captured, crews evacuated safely." Rodriguez watched the tactical display as red lights appeared across the galaxy, each one representing a successful Alliance strike. The Empire's rigid command structure, which had been its strength for so long, was becoming its weakness. Imperial commanders were trained to follow orders from above, but with their communications cut and their supply lines broken, they didn't know what to do. "Admiral," Sarah Kim said, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth. President Harper wants to speak with you." President Harper appeared on a smaller screen. "Admiral, how are our people doing?" "Better than expected, Madam President. The Alliance is working perfectly. Every species is contributing their strengths, and the Empire can't adapt fast enough to counter us." "Any word from the Rigel battle?" "They're holding their own. The Imperial fleet is much larger, but they can't land an effective hit on the Rigel defenders." "And our other operations?" 17 successful strikes in the past 6 hours. The Empire is losing control of their outer territories." President Harper nodded. "Admiral, I want you to prepare for the next phase. It's time to take Proxima Station." Proxima Station was the regional capital of the Empire's outer territories. It was a massive space station that controlled trade and communications for over 100 systems. If the Alliance could capture it, the Empire would lose control of an entire sector of the galaxy. "That's a big target, Madam President. The Empire will defend it heavily. That's why we're not going to attack it the way they expect." 3 days later, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, now serving as the flagship of the largest Alliance fleet ever assembled. Around him were ships from 20 different worlds, each one modified with the best technology from all the member species. "Captain," Amy Foster reported, "all ships are in position. We have 347 vessels ready for the assault and the surprise." Engineer Santos confirms that the special modifications are complete. The Proxima Station garrison won't know what hit them. The plan for taking Proxima Station was perhaps the most audacious thing the Alliance had ever attempted. Instead of attacking the station directly, they were going to move it. Maria Santos had developed a new application of the dimensional phase technology. By surrounding Proxima Station with enough ships generating a coordinated phase field, they could shift the entire station into a pocket dimension, cutting it off from Imperial reinforcements. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison," he spoke into the fleet communication system. Today we show the Empire that their strongholds are not as strong as they think. Begin phase field generation. Around Proxima Station, Alliance ships began to glow with strange energy. The station, built to withstand any conventional attack, had no defense against what was happening to it. "Sir," the station commander shouted to his staff, "what's happening to the stars?" Through the viewports they could see the stars beginning to fade and shift. Space itself seemed to be changing around them. "We're receiving a communication from the attacking fleet," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." Captain Morrison appeared on the station's main screen. "Commander, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Alliance Fleet. Your station has been moved into a dimensional pocket. You are now completely cut off from Imperial space." "That's impossible." "A lot of things are impossible until someone does them," Morrison replied. "You have two choices. Surrender and join the Alliance, or remain trapped in this pocket dimension until you run out of supplies." The station commander looked around at his staff. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? They were trapped in a place that didn't exist on any map. "How do we know you'll keep your word?" the commander asked. "Because that's what we do," Morrison said simply. "The Alliance doesn't conquer, we liberate." 12 hours later, Proxima Station officially surrendered and joined the Alliance. The Empire had lost not just a strategic base, but an entire sector of space. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than Imperial ships could travel. 2 years had passed since Captain Jake Morrison first met Ambassador Kethver. The galaxy looked very different now. Where once there had been only the red banners of the Galactic Empire, now there were the blue flags of the Galactic Federation. Flying over hundreds of worlds, former President Nicole Harper, now serving as the first Chancellor of the Federation, stood on the observation deck of the Federation flagship New Dawn, through the massive windows. She could see the former Imperial capital world of Zephyr Prime. The planet looked peaceful now, its cities no longer darkened by the shadow of tyranny. "Chancellor," said Captain Morrison, approaching her with a smile, "the ceremony is about to begin." Harper nodded. Today marked the official end of the Galactic Empire and the birth of the Galactic Federation. Representatives from over 300 worlds had gathered to sign the new Charter of Freedom. "It's hard to believe it's really over," Harper said. "Is it over?" Morrison asked. "Or is it just beginning?" Below them, in the great assembly hall that had once housed the Imperial Senate, beings from across the galaxy were taking their seats. Humans sat next to Zephyrians, former Imperial officers worked alongside rebel leaders, and species that had been enemies for centuries were now partners in building a new future. Dr. Kevin Brooks walked through the Science District of New Geneva, the Federation's new research capital built on one of Jupiter's moons. The facility was unlike anything that had ever existed. Scientists from every member world worked together, sharing knowledge freely and building technologies that no single species could have imagined. "Dr. Brooks," called Dr. Rebecca Lane as she approached with a group of alien researchers, "we've just had a breakthrough in quantum biology." "What kind of breakthrough?" "We've figured out how to combine Zephyrian medical technology with Kepler-7 energy manipulation and human genetic research. We can now cure diseases that were considered incurable just 2 years ago," Brooks smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped would happen when the Federation was formed. By combining the knowledge of hundreds of different species, they were solving problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. "And the best part," added Valthar, the former Imperial officer who now served as the head of xenobiology, "is that we're sharing everything freely. No species holds back knowledge from the others." "How many research projects are currently active?" Brooks asked. "Over 10,000, Rebecca replied. "And every single one involves scientists from at least 3 different worlds." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Federation vessel Liberty's Call, Captain Lisa Chun was meeting with her senior staff. Her crew was a perfect example of what the Federation had become: humans, Zephyrians, refugees from Kepler-7, former Imperial soldiers and beings from dozens of other worlds all working together. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Peter Walsh, a human engineer, "the new propulsion systems are working perfectly. We can now travel from one side of the galaxy to the other in just 3 weeks." "And the dimensional phase technology?" Chun asked. "Even better than before," said Click Whistle, the insect-like being from Kepler-7 who served as the ship's energy specialist. "We can now phase entire fleets through dimensions without any risk of dimensional drift." "What about our defense systems?" Commander Thelvis, the former rebel captain who now served as Chun's tactical officer, answered that question. "Our shields can now adapt to any known weapon type in real time, and our weapons can be configured for everything from disabling enemy ships to providing humanitarian aid." Ching nodded. The Federation had learned the lessons of the Empire's fall. Their military existed not to conquer but to protect. Their ships were designed to help, not harm. And their crews were trained to see other beings as potential friends, not enemies. In the assembly hall on Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Harper stepped up to the podium to address the gathered representatives. The hall fell silent as she began to speak. 2 years ago, she said, humanity was alone in the universe. We had no idea that there were other intelligent species among the stars. When we finally met them, we were told that we had 2 choices: submit to slavery or face extinction. Eh? Ripple of laughter went through the assembly. It was the same kind of laughter that had started everything, the laughter of free beings who refused to be intimidated. "We chose a third option," Harper continued. "We chose to laugh. We laughed at the idea that any being should kneel before another. We laughed at the thought that intelligence and creativity should be suppressed. We laughed at the notion that the galaxy belonged to one species." She paused and looked around the assembly. "And that laughter became something more powerful than any weapon the Empire ever built. It became hope." Admiral Lisa Rodriguez, now serving as the Federation's Secretary of Defense, stood up from her seat. "Chancellor, if I may?" "Of course, Admiral. I want to thank the former Imperial officers who helped us understand what the galaxy was truly like under Empire rule. Without their courage in switching sides, we never could have built something better." Admiral Zixthal, the former Imperial fleet commander who now served as Rodriguez's deputy, stood and bowed slightly. "Admiral Rodriguez, it is we who should thank humanity. You showed us that there was a better way." "We all showed each other," Rodriguez replied. "That's what makes the Federation work." Dr. Brooks was called to the podium next. "When we first encountered Imperial technology," he said, "we could have simply copied it. Instead, we improved it. But the real improvement wasn't in the technology itself. It was in how we used it." "How so?" asked a representative from one of the newer member worlds. "The Empire used technology to control and conquer. We use it to explore and create. The Empire hoarded knowledge. We share it freely. The Empire saw differences between species as problems to be solved. We see them as opportunities to learn." Engineer Maria Santos, now the Federation's Chief Technology Officer, added her thoughts. "Every species brings something unique to the Federation. The Zephyrians taught us about energy manipulation. The beings from Kepler-7 showed us new ways to think about biology. The refugees from Nexus Prime brought advanced manufacturing techniques. Even the smallest worlds have contributed technologies that have changed everything." "And what did humans contribute?" asked a representative. "Chaos," Santos said with a grin, causing another wave of laughter to fill the hall. "But the good kind of chaos, the kind that makes people think differently and try new things." Captain Morrison was invited to speak next. He looked around the assembly and smiled. "When Ambassador Kethver first came to Earth, he expected us to react with fear. Instead, we reacted with curiosity. That curiosity led us to question everything the Empire told us, and those questions led us here." "What questions?" someone asked. "Simple ones. Like, why should one species rule over all others? Why should knowledge be hoarded instead of shared? Why should beings be divided into castes instead of being judged by their actions? Why should the galaxy be ruled by fear instead of hope? The assembly was quiet for a moment, then Velther stood up. If I may, Captain Morrison, I would like to add something. Please do. Before I met humans, I never asked those questions. None of us did. We accepted that the Empire was the way things had to be. But humans taught us something important. Just because something has always been done one way doesn't mean it's the right way. Chancellor Harper returned to the podium. The Empire lasted for thousands of years because it convinced everyone that it was eternal and unchangeable. But nothing is eternal except change itself. And nothing is unchangeable except our willingness to accept things as they are. She held up a document. This is the Federation Charter. It establishes principles that we hope will guide us for generations to come: freedom of thought, equality of opportunity, cooperation between species, the right of every being to determine their own destiny. And if the Federation becomes corrupt like the Empire did? Asked a voice from the assembly. Harper smiled. Then I hope someone will have the courage to laugh at us too. The ceremony continued for hours as representatives from each world signed the charter. When it was finished, a great celebration began. Music from hundreds of different cultures filled the air. Foods from across the galaxy were shared freely. Children from dozens of species played together in the gardens outside the hall. As the sun set on Zephyr Prime, Captain Morrison stood with his old crew from the USS Endeavour. They watched as fireworks lit up the sky, each one representing a different world in the Federation. Captain, Amy Foster said, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had just surrendered to Ambassador Kethver? Sometimes, Morrison replied. But then I remember something important. What's that? Humans don't surrender. We adapt. We overcome. We find a way to turn our greatest challenges into our greatest opportunities. And we laugh, added Dr. Brooks, who had joined the group. Yes, Morrison agreed, we laugh. Because laughter is the sound of free beings who refuse to be conquered. As the celebration continued into the night, children from across the galaxy played in the gardens of the former imperial capital. Their laughter echoed through the streets, a sound that the Empire had never understood and could never have survived. It was the laughter of hope, the laughter of freedom, the laughter of beings who knew that no matter how dark things became,